Hi, quilting peeps. I'm going to wait for some viewers to come into the chat room. I see I had some people waiting. And just an intro for our video today, we're going to talk about New York beauty blocks. And I have started this project years ago, so I'm going to talk about what I have been doing. So we're just going to wait for some viewers to come in. See, I'm already getting some shout outs. Thank you very much for posting them. I have Liz. Hi, Liz. She always comes every week. She's in New Orleans. And she's got to check out and come back in. So hopefully you'll come back and see it. If not, Liz, you can see it live later. We got Mila Killabew. Hello. Got Linda Nowles. And she's from Indianapolis, Indiana. Got Robin. And she's from RS Islands Crafts. She's from Florida. Hi, Claudette. You made one of the live viewings. And she's from Anaheim, California. She's been missing the last few ones. Got Gloria McGee, Liliana, and I'm assuming she's from Hawaii. And we got Cindy from Wisconsin. Welcome, everybody. So we do have the required number of people in the chat room. I think we're at 30 now. I have Kaylin from Stitched Art Studio from Ottawa, Ontario. Cecilia Stone and Teajuana. Hi, Teajuana. Welcome back. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'll come back and do more shout outs as they come in, because I don't know how long this is going to take or if I'll even be able to finish this in an hour. And I'm still seeing shout outs coming in. We got Joni Foote, Darlene Farmer from Northern Virginia. Hi, Diane. And we've got Bonita Nance, Gwen Spencer from Las Vegas, Rhonda Ladson, and we've got Gail Hall from Arizona. So what we talked about last week and what was requested is more information on the New York Beauty. And I had actually started this project in 2004, and I would work on a few blocks at retreats, and then of course time gets in the way, you forget about it. And so when they were talking about a lot of the New York Beauty stuff in our last chat session, I volunteered to come on and show you what I'm doing, and perhaps we'll get to see the block being sewn. So what I did was I actually got myself a binder, and so I could keep track of everything. And the one thing that I did was I did purchase the book, and I couldn't remember the lady's name last month, and I actually have it in the spine of my book, my binder, is I purchased a New York Beauty book by Karen Stone. And the reason why I did that is because it's a workbook and it has all of the different patterns for different styles. And let me just show you some of those. So like for block 1A, here's what the page looks like. It's more of your simpler one. But what I do like is that on the wedge, she gives you this numbering system here, which tells you what wedge will match up if you want to switch and replace these out with other things. And that's what I like about this, is that she has the degree, and she also has it in both corners. So it's also over here as well. But on hers, the background up here is always the same template. So she basically made this book as a template where you're supposed to take this book apart and then just start sewing your patterns on the particular papers. But what I did, because I wasn't sure at the time if I wanted to make more blocks or if I wanted to make it again, I decided to Xerox or copy all of the pages And then that way I made 2 or 3 copies at the same time. And the reason why I did that is because if you're making copies on a copy machine and you're paper piecing, it's best for you to make all of your copies on the same machine because different machines might push the sizing off just a little bit. And then in addition to that, so all of your arcs are on these pages, and I'm hoping that some of this is showing up. I've got, see if I can move this light. So you've got all of your arcs, and they're different. So she's got like the block up here, and then some of the arcs take 2 pages because this one has 3-piece arcs plus your background fabric. And so you just basically would just start piecing on these pages. You don't have to necessarily copy anything. But I copied everything. And then what I did was I put it into sleeves in my book. And then the other thing that she did, and I have to find it, is in your center of the book, she gave, I probably have it in my binder because I probably already took it out. In the center of the book, she gives you all of the connecting pieces that are not pieced. And I do have it in my book. I'm just going to take the page out. And these right here are actually printed on freezer paper. So you really didn't have to copy anything. But I think ahead, and I'm very concrete with how I do things. And I had a feeling that if I actually used these freezer paper templates, that they weren't going to stick throughout the entire project. So that was another reason that I went ahead and made my own copies. So then I took her templates, and these are my freezer paper templates. And where you see they haven't been trimmed, I haven't used those yet. So I have already done either 12 or 13 of these blocks. I can't remember. So let me go back to the front of my book and show you how I'm keeping track of what I have done and haven't done. And I'm just taking these pages out because I think it shows up better in the camera. But she gives you this layout in the book. So I just copied this and inserted it into a sleeve. And anytime that I finish a block, I would write the date that I actually made that block so that I know that I done that particular block. Now, some of these blocks are duplicates, but you can change how they look based on the value of your fabric. And you can also mix and match. Remember when I talked about how she had the radius mark in the seam allowance? You can switch those up and make your blocks any way you want as well. But as I was making the blocks as she recommended, I was actually marking them off so I could keep track. So I did the first 2 rows, and then I started skipping. I did block 4E, 6A, and 6E. So my next block that I'm working on in this video is going to be 3A. So let me get this back, and I'll do a few shout outs. Got Evelyn French from Los Angeles. Thank you for watching. We got the Quilting Marines in the house. Yay. So you haven't missed anything yet. We got Nita Hooper from Garland, Texas. And I'm hoping, because he's one of the people that really asked about this. This is the book. I don't know if you saw this when I was talking about this earlier. It's a book, and it's actually a workbook by Karen Stone. So yeah, you really don't have to do any copying, but I never know if I want to make something bigger or not. The other thing that I did was, as I made my blocks, and I kept some in the book just to show you, as I made particular blocks, I would just slide them into the sleeve. And I'm showing you this block because in here, this is 2 different wedges in here. And I could have, the way that I put my fabrics is making the design. And you can change that up as well as you go along. So just changing values in that will change how this particular block would look. Like instead of having these arrows, if I just put one color here and one color up here all the way through, then that would make this block look a whole lot different. So based on your color choices, how you piece your blocks together, you'll come up with different designs. So I actually had all of my blocks in here, and I pulled out 10 just to put on my design wall that I would be showing you toward the end of the video. Some of the things that I use when I paper piece. For this project, I have scissors, have my rotary cutter, and then I have an add a quarter ruler. And I also use some kind of a card. It's like a piece of cardstock. It's like the weight of a greeting card. I like to use that. So sometimes I'll save a piece of my greeting card so I can use for paper piecing, and I'll show you what I do with that. And then also have my templates for my unit. So again, let me go back because we're working on 3A, and let me just show you that, show you what it looks like. I put a clip in it so I can get to it easily. So this is the block here for 3A, and it actually is 4 arc pieces. I've got the center, which is unpieced, and then I've got a pieced arc, and then an arc that's not pieced again, and then another pieced arc, and then the background. So I have all of those fabrics there. And so what I did was I made 2 or 3 copies. Let me see what's in the bag because I've already pulled one out. So apparently I made 3 copies of all the patterns. I just want to be real clear what I'm doing here. And then this is the corner from off of the piece that I've already used. So I've already cut this up ahead of time to save us some time. So when I cut this out, I just leave a little bit of margin around. You don't have to cut it out precisely at this point because after you paper piece, you're then going to cut your piece out exact. So for this wedge, I am deciding that I'm going to have a background and a main print. So my darkest print will be sitting on the bottom in the arc, and then my light part will be up here. So I've already cut a couple of strips. So these are the 2 fabrics that I'm going to use for that. For some reason, my light is not letting me. It hasn't been a problem too much in the past, but tonight it is. So these are my fabrics, and I'm hoping you can see the true color of it. Got Lauren from Texas. Hi, Lauren, welcome. So the first thing that we need to do is in paper piecing. Well, let me go back. On the instructions, she also tells you what size strip to cut for the width. And that's kind of confusing for me because she doesn't tell you what to cut for the length. So what I do is I just take my own ruler. I actually use my little ruler here, but I'll try to use something else that I use my add a quarter ruler, but that's not going to show up very well. But I'll just measure from seam allowance straight on a line because we're sewing on a diagonal, not straight. So I just line this up on one of the straight lines and I see where it ends down here. And then I like to add, instead of just adding a quarter, I like to add at least 3/4 to an inch extra, because when you start sewing on a diagonal and then when you're doing paper piecing, things may or may not line up. When I make my blocks, I honestly like to just go ahead and cut my strips into the appropriate size rectangles. But I know some people think that that's a waste of fabric. So I'm going to try to do it with the strip sets. It's still going to be a lot of waste because you still got to trim off those angles. So it's not really going to matter much. So I have already cut my strip sets, and I even put my marks, which you probably can't see. But I actually wrote my measurements in the spaces here. I wrote it in pencil, so I'm not sure if it's showing up. And then I've got one down here. And then I always just add on. So it's 7/8 of an inch for the wedge on the bottoms and 1 1/4 of an inch this measurement here. And then what I would do is I would cut rectangles that were 3/4 to 1 inch larger than these measurements. So these are my finished sizes. I'm going to try to see if I can do it with the strip, and we'll see how that goes. If it doesn't go well, then we'll change it up as we go along. So the first thing we need to do is add our background fabric to the back of our template. And we want the wrong side of the fabric to the wrong side of the template because, well, no, we don't. We want to, hold on. I got to put these two pieces together because when we first start out, we're actually doing both pieces. And I'm actually going to be starting from this side. And another thing, I guess I forgot to mention, I have done like a paper piecing video, and so I forget to tell you some of these steps, but I like to just go ahead and bend my pattern on the lines, and you can see where I've already pre-folded my pattern. It just makes it so that I already have a memory of where I'm folding as I'm paper piecing, so I'm not creating the lines as I'm working with the fabric already being stitched. So we're going to sew from this side around. So that means that I need my light background to cover. I need my light fabric to cover this section here that you can see. And I'm actually putting it on the back. And I'm just going to hold it with a flower head pen. I like to use a flower head pen because it's a flat pen. Just to hold it in place so that it doesn't move. So all I've done, if I fold down, I've got fabric that's more than 1/4 of an inch. It doesn't have to be exact. Can't be less than 1/4 of an inch. You need at least more than 1/4 of an inch. And then what I want to do, since I've got that fabric placed right side up, I'm now going to take another piece of fabric and put them right sides together. So this is the wrong side of my piece number 2. And then what I'm going to do from the front is sew on this line here. So I'm going to sew down this line here. Now, when I get to my sewing machine, there's a couple of adjustments that I've made to my machine. One is that I have on my open toe foot, and I'm going to drop this camera down in just a second. So here I have on my open toe foot. So I've taken off my 1/4 inch foot, and I like to use my open toe foot when I'm sewing on lines. So if I'm doing half square triangles where I'm sewing on the drawn line, then I like to use my open toe foot. And then the other thing that I've done is my stitch length. I have changed my stitch length to 1.4. I actually like 1.5, which is available on my other sewing machines. But on this machine, I don't have 1.5. The increments go down in 0.2s. So I'm stuck with that. So all I want to do now is just come over here to my machine and stitch. I actually start off my paper because I'm already just shy of my 1/4 inch seam. I don't have a whole lot of room. So I just stitch from the edge of my paper from top to bottom. And so I have some stitching like this. I'm hoping this shows up. I'm at an angle here. And then from the back, you can see the stitching. So they're very tiny stitches. And the reason why you want that is because when you start pulling the paper off, you don't want the stitches to come apart. And then I'm just going to go ahead and finger press this open. You know, I still haven't figured out what I did with my wooden iron. Let's see if it's in here. I haven't fully unpacked from retreat. Yes. So then I'll go ahead and press that over. And I got something that looks very strange. And then when I turn it to the back side, I just want to make sure that what I've pieced is covering this line, because this piece, this blue should be in this area right here. So I want to make sure that it's covering that. Now this is going to be real hard probably to see on the screen. Not that blue, I'm sorry. What I'm covering is this space right here, because I want my smaller section to be the darker print. So now what I'm going to do, I like to take my card, and remember I already kind of gave my line some memory. A little bit more. Let me know in the comment section if you can see this. I'm at a weird angle here. So what I'm doing is I'm going to fold my paper on that line, and then I'm going to pull back my seam allowance so that it lays nice and flat. What I use this card for is when I go to my add a quarter ruler, it has a little lip on here. And I take that and just butt it up, and then it's got something to hang on to, but it's not too fat to add a whole lot of extra fabric. And I trim that off. So now I got something that looks like that, and it's actually following my pattern. It still doesn't look like much. Now I want to use my background again, so I'm just going to go ahead and clip that off. It doesn't matter, just anywhere on the outside. So I just clip that off like so. My chat box disappeared, went to sleep on me. Okay, so we got this piece now. I'm just trying to check the comments. And the next piece that I want to add is going to be a background, and it's actually going to cover this piece right here. So I have this angle, and what I'm going to do is take my piece that I just cut off from the other side, and I'm going to line this up so that I can go back and sew 1/4 of an inch on this other side. So let's do that. And like I said, I always start off my pattern because I don't cut it too much bigger. I cut it about 1/8 of an inch bigger. And then that way I'm just flipping this over again, and I'm going to press that with my wooden iron. Again, I'm going to the next line here. So the next line that I'm going to be sewing on is this line right here. So I'm going to fold back on that line with that card in there. Once I get that folded down with the card, then if I got this seam allowance not laying flat, I'll pull it so that it comes off the paper. So I have my piece pulled over, and you can see where this is not flat. I just pulled that back off the paper. It's not going to harm anything. I put on my add a quarter ruler, and then I trim that. And this is what we have at this point. And so you're going to keep adding. I keep trying to show you from the wrong side, but you're going to keep adding pieces from the top and bottom. And again, if you want to change how these pieces are looking, you can alternate every 3 fabrics. So you get to have some play in having fun with these blocks. You can do whatever you want with the designs and make them look completely different. And I'm sure that there are probably a lot of free patterns online, but I like that everything was in here. I knew that they would all match up, and then I could still rearrange pieces and make things a little bit different if I wanted to. Keep losing my wooden iron. So as I'm sewing this, you all can share with me what you did today. I actually myself went to Aldi's today, and I don't know if any I'm going to upload a video. We actually made market totes, and today was my first day using them, and they worked very well. I'm going to have to show you that, and I might have it outside of my room because I haven't put them back in my car yet, but they were really nice bags made for going to the market to purchase stuff. And I like them because when I put the bags in my car, they did not, none of the product fell out of the bags like what happens with my other bags that I use. So now we're here. This is what I have, and you can see how this strip looks very crazy as you're piecing. So you still have some waste that you're getting rid of. And this is what it looks like from the back. So I'm going to flip this back, turn on to the next line that I want to sew on, but I can see that I'm going to be cutting at a very weird angle if I do that. So if I fold, let me show you what I'm talking about. If I fold this paper back right here and go to trim, I'm going to be trimming at a very weird angle going through here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it off. And this is where I say you're going to have waste no matter what. So I just go ahead and cut that piece off so that I'm not cutting diagonally through, wasting a lot more yardage than necessary. Hi, Carrie Wills. Carrie Wills is my daughter. How are you doing? I can't believe you found me on YouTube. So yeah, so now I'm back to putting, I'm still going to have to trim it up, but I'm not going through my strip set, wasting a whole lot of fabric off of my strip set. So now I have something that looks like this. And my next step is to add back my next piece. You got people talking about Diane's website. Thank you all for visiting her website and for making some purchases. Thank you, Linda, for letting me know you can see it, because I have it tilted down so far that I'm getting a different perspective here. And again, I've got this weird looking strip that if I trim it where it's going to go, I'm going to waste a lot of fabric. So I'm just going to make sure that I don't cut the part that I need. So I'm just going to cut it off across the bottom. So again, I just cut it so that when I'm looking at the front, I just want to make sure that I've got at least 1/4 of an inch beyond this line where I'm looking. So it's got some very weird angles. And that is one of the reasons why I like to use rectangles instead of doing a strip set, because I can control a rectangle, and then when I'm done with it, I can just throw whatever scraps are left away. So I'm still throwing away this much after I trimmed it up. So now we're back to the other piece, just looking to see what's going on in the comments section. Gail saying she finished the quilt top for her oldest son today. Darlene say this is very time consuming. Yes, it is. Anything that's more than your squares and rectangles are going to be a little bit more challenging to do when you're actually making blocks. So yes, it is very time consuming. But it's worth it in the end. And one of, sometimes I like the challenge of doing something, and also in knowing that not everybody is going to make it as well. It's not one of those quilts that I would probably make and give to somebody unless they truly appreciated the value of the work, because I started this in 2004 and still haven't finished it. Not because I didn't like it, it is because it's a lot of work. And I made it even more work for me because I'm using all blues and I'm trying not to repeat any of the fabrics as I go. So I don't know if I'm going to continue with that throughout, but that's what I had done when I first started. So yes, very time consuming. So we got the Quilting Marine says he went to Walmart to find some Coca-Cola and Softly Soft for fluffy fluff fabric, flannel for backing. We got Antonia. She says she loves my videos. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate that. Got Gail. What was the design? Oh, HC is asking Gail what is the design on her quilt that she just made. Cindy saying great demonstration. Thank you, Cindy. I have a difficult time doing stuff live because it feels funny when I'm talking to myself. Like if I'm doing a lecture or in a class, it's different, but I feel funny when I'm just sitting here talking to myself. So I do appreciate you all in the comment section because it makes me not feel alone. Claudette says she's working on a breast cancer quilt for a friend. That's going to be pretty cool. It's going to be touching as well. Oh, for a friend's mother. And Darlene's working on basting a quilt sandwich. I'm getting through there. So this is where I am. I still got a few more places to go. I'm getting close. And let's see what else is going on. So she's working on basting a quilt sandwich with water-soluble thread. Don't like to use safety pins. That's a good idea. Next, after Darlene says that he started a card trick quilt for my sister. Are you using the pattern from Missouri Star? Or are you doing a traditional card trick block? And then Gail is working. Gail says it's a log cabin with sawtooth borders around each block. Sounds very pretty. I love log cabin quilts. One of my favorites. And Diane is cutting fat quarters. Okay, I'm gonna have to trim this one again before I cut. So that's why by the time I do all of this secondary trimming, I think if you just cut rectangles, that this will go a lot faster. You might waste a little bit more fabric, but hey, it's time. We got plenty of fabrics too. I know a lot of people don't like to waste fabric, but if you die with it still not being used, you waste it that way as well. So I'm just trying to get it done as fast as I can. My machine came unthreaded. I'm actually using my R-field thread today because when I should be using like Holtz and Clark's thread spools, because for some reason when I'm using my thread on the stand or if I use R-field, at some point the machine gets unthreaded every time I cut. So I don't understand why that happens, but that's what is happening. But it doesn't do it on the Holtz and Clark thread spools. But I've been trying not to purchase those, so I don't have a whole lot of them. I have them in colors, but I don't have a whole lot of it in neutrals. So I think we need one more background fabric, and I'm done with this piece, I think. Let's see what else is going on in the comment section. Antonia says she just finished making 18 different blocks called Shades of Gray. Oh, that sounds beautiful. And we got Jackie Bass from St. Louis. Welcome, Jackie. And we got Trisha. She says, I have been doing the spring dresses sewing for the little granddaughters. Oh, that's going to be too cute. My sister used to make our Easter outfits for us when we were smaller. Okay, so this is my last seam on this particular one. And I'm just going to rough cut it off just to get it off so I can show you what it looks like. I'm going to tilt you back up for a minute because I have things popping up wanting to restart my computer. And we don't want that. So this is what I have from the front. And then actually on the back, this is what I have. Now at this point, I would normally go press this with a dry iron. I do have a little desktop mini iron here, but I don't want to cut it on while I'm videotaping because I got all this extra electronic equipment I'm working with. So I'm not going to do that. So at this point, you can decide how you want to cut this apart. I'm going to just tilt it back down. I needed to get all of these little reboot messages off my machine here. So for my ends, because they are already square, whenever I'm squaring up paper piecing, and if it's a square or if it has any kind of a straight edge, I'll use my ruler, put my ruler on the internal part. I would put it on my finish line here, and then I trim 1/4 of an inch away. And the reason why I do that is because if I did something with the copying where it changed sizes a little bit, then I'm making it back perfect. But these are perfect. Whatever copy machine I copied these on, these patterns came out exact. So I didn't have a lot of things to do. So now I have my edges trimmed. And now I want to trim on the line of my template. And you can do that with scissors, or you can do that with a rotary cutter if you want to do that as well. I prefer to just use my scissors and just cut it off. And so these are my paper scissors that I'm using, but they are, I think are they Fiskars brand? Yes, they are Fiskars brand, but I actually use these for projects where I have paper in them. So, but they are, they are fabric scissors. They're not the paper scissors. And so I'm just cutting on the line, and you could also use your rotary cutter if you want, and just be very careful when you do that. Let me see if I can do that, because it will go a lot quicker with your rotary cutter. but you don't have a ruler or anything that you're laying up against because you may not have this particular arc size. If you've got a circle ruler that will fit in your arc, that would be perfect. And so here is my arc from the back, and this is the arc from the front. Now I have already, I'm hoping that my mic is still working because I can't hear it right now. So I have already done some selecting of fabrics and some cutting so that we wouldn't be here all night because it's already 7:40 and I've just done this one spear. Now I did do intro, so I probably didn't sew very long. And then I'm also talking to you guys, but this does take a lot of time. So what I did is for my arc, let me get the little piece out because it'll be easier to show. So I need these 4 sections, and she tells you what the patterns are. So I have gone through here and pulled out all of the patterns that I need. And she has on your templates, like you can reuse some of the templates for different blocks. And so she has all of them on the template. So I also wrote it on there as well. This one I had used before, so it was already trimmed up with my 1/4 inch seam allowance. And so I now need to cut this out. So I'm going to do the same thing on my straight lines. I'm going to use my 1/4 inch and just cut those off. That goes pretty quick. And then I'll have to go back and do my curve as well. And I just want to show you, like, you see where there's some threads over here? That's why I always put the 1/4 inch on the line and then cut, because otherwise my pieces would be too little. And so now I just want to cut out my curve. Again, you can do this with scissors and very carefully with a rotary cutter. And for this, all I do now is just pull off my freezer paper. And when you put the freezer paper on your fabrics that are not pieced, make sure you put it onto the right side. I really don't think in this point that it matters, but anytime you're using freezer paper for templates, you always put it on your right side. So I've already gone ahead and cut that out for all of my pieces. This is my background piece. And I didn't do it here, but another tip if you're concerned about your blocks not lining up is on your outside edge, on your straight edge, you could cut that a little bit larger so you could square your blocks up later if you want. But I did not do that. You have choices. So I'm just going to lay this out. The other piece that you're missing here is my other spear, my other arc. I actually done it off camera because I knew I wouldn't have time to piece them both. And I said this was 4 pieces, but it's actually 5. I can't count to 5 tonight. And this is what my block is going to look like. So you want to know now, how do you pick your fabrics for blocks like this? I only work with 2 pieces at a time. So when I first start, I just go to my arcs and I decide, okay, what do I want in my arc? And so I actually started picking fabrics. I just picked these 2. Then when I got ready to get my next fabrics, I then go take this piece and work with my fabrics to decide what is it that I want to do. My main thing is that since I'm using all blues, I want to make sure that there is some value in my fabrics as I'm going along, or my blues are not like they might turn colors, like I'm using teal blues, kind of some sea greens. So just to know that if I'm doing all of this piecing, I want to make sure that all of this work shows. I don't want to use the same value of a color and then have it not be different unless that's the look you want. Like if I had made this with this same fabric here, it would have kind of really looked like it was part of the Lady Liberties or something. So it just depends. And that's how you can switch up the look of these blocks based on where you put your fabric combinations. And I could have put the same fabrics here and here. It's all in whatever it is that you want your block to look like. And when you're making so many of them, you can really play a lot to determine what it is you want to do. So now the next step is sewing these pieces together. So Darlene set up an appointment with a long armor today. And Trisha's saying quilting is on hold. And Trisha's saying that sure would be a beauty for sure. Blue is my favorite color. When I first started making this, I didn't have like a whole lot of all of the colors, and blue has been always one of those that I've had a lot of. And then I didn't have a lot of green at some points, and then started using applique quilts for flowers, and so then now I got a lot of greens as well. So what I've just done is I folded my piece in half on the curve, and I've just finger pressed in a little fold. I've also done the same thing on my arc and put a little crease in there, and it's actually in the point, or it should be in the point. And now I am going to line these two pieces up where I've made the mark, and I'm actually going to put a pin there. And when I sew these together, I like to sew with the arc on top. And if you want to at this point, you can go ahead and pull out your seam allowance in just the seam allowance only. Whenever you're paper piecing, you shouldn't pull out your paper until something else is connected. And then this is what it looks like on the other side. So now I'm going to take a pin. I'm actually sewing from, I like to sew with the smile up. And so now I'm going to take this in, pull it around, and place a pin where these pieces line up on the edge. And then likewise, you can do the same thing on the other side. Most of the times I don't do this one because I can hold that when I'm starting, but if you're having difficulty with that, you can go ahead and put a pin there as well. And these are pretty small when you first start out. As you get to your bigger background piece, you may not need to put that start pin, but go ahead and place a pin there. So now I've got this weird looking thing I have to sew. And I'm still going to keep my seam allowance low because I'm still sewing on paper. And now I'm going to put back on my 1/4 inch foot. So if you're working this project block by block, you're going to constantly be changing from open toe to 1/4 inch foot. And I like to just work block by block, especially if I want fabrics in a particular position or particular place. That way I'm not losing what goes with what, because with you having different arc sizes, you need to make sure that they're going to match up. And I will put you back down. I haven't sewn these in a while, so we're going to pray. So here we go. Because I can't remember, I didn't get up to look to see if I took the paper out of my seam allowance or not. So I've got it started, and I'm just going to go ahead and take a couple of stitches to get started. And I'm going to pull out that first pin. What I like to do is you've got the two shapes, and you're probably not seeing it because it's happening over on this side, but I'm pulling the top piece, I'm pulling to my right, and my bottom piece, I'm kind of leaning towards my left so that they meet up. And then I'm also using my knee lift so that I can lift it up if I want to. And I'm not worried about the line. I'm just trying to keep the 1/4 inch of my foot on the outside of my fabrics. So right now, I'm not even worried about that 1/4 inch seam. And this one is going to be the hardest seam because it's the smallest one. So as I'm working on these, it will get easier and easier to piece these. My machine keeps unthreading. Okay. So my fabric actually got caught, and I'm going to show you this. When I flip this down, can you see where my fabric got caught right here? So I'm just going to pick that part out. I thought I moved it, and I did not. And so I'm just going to only pick that part out to restitch that area. Now this is the part where it's not fun because when you're stitching with the little bitty stitches, it makes it harder for ripping. I can't see it over there on the paper side. And once you get the first stitch, it tends to go a little bit easier after that. I knew that would happen though. Just because I got all of you watching me, now you get to see me rip. Okay. So I'm going to stick a pin right here to hold it down because once I stitched on it, it kind of has a little memory of its own wanting to go back up there. So I just need to go in here and overlap about 5 or 6 stitches and then continue stitching again. And I like to show you stuff like this when it happens because this is what happens to us at home, but most channels will edit that kind of stuff out. So now I got this. I'm going to press it. I got to get the seams, the thread from out of it. And like I said, if I was at an iron, I would press this with my big iron. So I still have a little piece of it still showing my white thread there, and I can pluck that out. But it's good enough right now for me to go ahead and go to the next step for this video. And so again, I'm going to fold, put a crease, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing for my next piece going on, and hopefully this will be a better example. And again, I'm putting the smile on top. Why is the smile on top? For me, I like putting the smile on top because it's the one that's most stretchy. So if I need something to fit, then that would be the one that's easier to manipulate. There are some people that like to sew it the opposite way, but this is how I like to sew it. And again, I'm at the beginning here. This isn't a very steep curve here, so I don't have to put the pin here. I can just go ahead and start sewing. So you would think with me sewing all of those apple cores that I'd have curved seaming down pat, but it just depends on the day. Now you notice this time my paper is underneath because I'm sewing with the curve on the top. So I'm not even worried about the 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm just making sure that I'm stitching a 1/4 of an inch. I might want to increase to 1.6 millimeters as I'm sewing these in the event that I have to do some ripping. Just make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, I'm losing my screen again. So now I've got this piece sewed down. And when I go to flip it up, this is what I have. So that's part 2. 3 parts of it sewn now. I still can't count to 5 apparently. I'm trying to see what else is in the comment sections. The Quilting Marine is saying that I appreciate one of your quilts. Hint. I don't know who he's talking to. Are you talking to me? Oh, I see you, Carrie. She's responding back to me. She's talking about, yes, I found you. Have you had a chance to work on the baby's quilts that you started? So now I'm again working with my next piece, which is the spear, and the smile is on top again. So I will just keep repeating this. So I've got this piece to add in my background. The Quilting Marine says that this is looking awesome. Yes, I love these New York Beauty blocks, but they do take a lot of work. Now, if you're having difficulty with the paper, another thing that you could do is you could add in more pins. So let me show you that as well. Instead of just adding your main pins, you can put in more pins. And then as you see, I'm moving this around, I'm flattening things out. So it's already working with the curve. So I've got this section here. I can make it match up and then just put a pin in. So again, I'm just going in the middle and placing a pin, and then you can place more pins in as you need. Now, it just takes time to pin, but if you want to do this because it's easier for you to sew, you can also do this as well. And now, even though it's on a curve, I've got the majority of this now pinned for sewing. I'm just lazy and I don't want to do all the pinning because I have to pin. I like to pin where things match up. So I just tend not to pin when I don't have to. Oops, I just went over a pin. You don't want to do that. Forgot to pull it out. And see how I've got this paper and it's a little stiff, so I'm just manipulating it and moving it around. So when it feels like it's bulky, I just lift my presser foot up and rearrange it. I'm going to do it again right here. I've got this fold thing happening here. If I lift up my presser foot, push all of that back, then I can keep sewing. Got another fold coming up. Lift up my presser foot. That's why I like to use my knee lift. If you have a machine that has a knee lift, please get it out. You are going to have to adjust to using it at first, but it is a godsend. Okay. Came unthreaded again, and I left one pin in there. So now we have something that's looking like that. So I'm actually pressing the seams toward the, on this particular block, toward the unit that doesn't have paper in it, just because that's the way that it wants to lay. So this is what I am currently working with. And we just need to add one more piece, the background filler, which is the same size on all the pieces. So I'm folding in half again. Got my background piece, fold it in half. And this is the smile part, so it's going to be on top. I match up my pieces. Can't see my fold. All these bright lights. And I'm just going to pin the center and the end. But I like to show different ways of doing things. Got a lot of comments. I'm hoping that my mic system's still working. Every time it seems like it's going in and out. And Tonya had to leave. Thank you for watching. If you come back and watch the recap. Trisha says, I agree, T. I would cut those strips into rectangles. A lot easier to do rectangles, but I know there are some quilters that, you know, don't have a lot of fabric. I happen to have plenty, and I never run out because the majority of my quilts are scrap quilts. So therefore, I don't worry about running out of fabric. Even if I ran out of fabric in a spear, if it was just one piece, I would just piece the scraps back together and add it in. But let's just say that I ran out in the middle, which I would never do because I know whether or not I have enough to do it when I start in the first place. But I would just go ahead and add another fabric that was in the same value. Our ancestors did it. I look at a lot of antique quilts. I love doing quilts where something's a little bit different you have to look for. My machine became unthreaded again. This is another reason that I chain piece all the time so that I'm not having to worry with my pieces becoming, my machine becoming unthreaded. And then I'm actually sewing pieces at the same time. But for this demo, I knew if I did that, it would just take longer for me to show, and we only got a limited time. And it's already 8:02, but I'm almost finished, and then I do have a couple of show and tell, so don't leave yet. I'm going to show you 10 blocks on my design wall, and then I do have a little miniature, little art quilt I made with a few New York Beauty blocks in it. I used it for a challenge a few years ago. Back in 2002, I believe. So I want to show you that because you don't have to make a whole entire quilt with the New York Beauty. You can just do a few blocks. So let me press this one, and then I will show you this block that we did from start to finish online. Now, when I go and press this at my ironing station, I will press this with a dry iron, and that's because I have the paper pieces in here. You don't want to get those wet and have them dry up, and then they start to dry up in your block. So let's go ahead and put the camera up. Sorry about my hand, but this is what we have here. And I just have to press it, and then I can make sure it's the right size as needed. Look like I got a little pucker right here, but it'll press out. And if it don't press out, it'll quilt out. So everything is not perfect, but it will be in the final quilt. You will never, ever know. So let me go through the comment section. Then I'm going to show you quilts. I'm just making sure that I've gotten everybody's comments. Says the Quilting Marine says, T, have you ever had a sewing machine table with the machine set level with the tabletop? I actually have a So Easy table that I take when I go on retreats. It's made for, the tabletop is made for my finger sewing machine. And I don't use that machine as much. Actually, my daughter who's on here, she comes over and she uses that machine when she sews over here. But that's the only one that fits in a flatbed. I kept thinking that maybe I would make my desk here a flat top, but I haven't done that yet. It was more important when I was actually machine quilting in this area. But what I also did was I then just put my ironing board on the opposite side of this table because that's about all the room I have on the opposite side anyway. And so then it would catch my larger quilts as I was quilting. So for the most part, I really don't sew with those. I even have one of those plastic tables with the foot that extends 2 feet off that I would use as well sometimes, but it just got to be a chore putting it up and down. This machine and my Lissimo has a wider base that comes with them as well. But I don't use them. They're nice and all. It just depends on what you're doing and how you're doing it. AT says she's using the Missouri Star technique. Sharon is in the house from New and Kaylin is hand stitching binding right now. Darlene is also knitting a pair of socks to match a quilt. And Linda says, where did you get the little wooden iron at? If you do a Google search for wooden iron and put quilting, I'm sure it will come up. There are so many different places and different types. And Clover just came out with a blue one that actually is a roller. I haven't used it yet. I bought one so that I could do a review on it, and I put it in some special place, and I don't know where I put it. So whenever I find it, I will do a review on it, but just Google it. They're all over. Gail says she loves the colors. I've got Jakara, and she's talking to me in a different language, and I can't translate that. Hold on. Yeah, it doesn't give me a translate on that. I'm so sorry about that. But welcome to the channel. Gail says the block mixer wants to go swimming. A swimming pool or the Caribbean Sea. Say Mike is working, so thank you for letting me know. Phyllis Gardner. That is, and then it stopped. Nice. Okay, but looks real challenging. It does take some patience. Laura says, I really enjoyed you. You're awesome. I got Happy Mail YouTube video I share with my friend. It was very emotional and nice. Thank you for sharing with us. You're more than welcome. Darlene saying, Linda saying to Darlene that she also knits socks. So I am going to go ahead and show you some of the blocks. And I do have a quilt top here. And I'm not sure how much of this quilt is going to be showing in this little small area. But I actually did this as a paper piecing challenge for my guild. And let me get the label. Just let you all know, I have labels on everything. And I did a labels video. And I show you how I create a whole lot of different styles of labels. The label can just be a piece of muslin that you handwrite on. The important part is to get the information there. I call this Fiesta Fireworks. It was made in June 2002 as a guild challenge. Any paper piece quilt, no other requirements. It says, I've always wanted to tackle the New York Beauty block, and this was my incentive. In addition, this was my first time working with batik fabrics. This pattern was from an Australian patchwork and quilting magazine. This quilt won second place in machine quilting category and third place in paper piecing category. This was the first time I won awards for my craftsmanship. I was too excited. So I got all of that on my label. How many times have you seen older quilts and you know absolutely nothing about them? So I've given you a lot about where I was in my quilt making at the time, gave you what I made it for, and what awards I actually won. So this is upside down. That's the label. I do have a hanging sleeve on here as well. I sometimes hang this in my kitchen, but I'm hoping you can see this because I can't see what you're seeing. But I really had fun with this. I didn't have to make as many blocks because I used a lot of filler blocks, just plain old squares, and then I put these little spirals on top. So, and I got to play with putting pink down in the bottom corner, so it's more pink base, pink focus down there, and then more green and blue focus in the top corner. So I had fun with this. So this was, I did this because I thought that the New York Beauty would be kind of intimidating. So I started with something smaller first. So let me move the camera and show you the 10 blocks. I don't have all 13 on my wall. Whoops. So those are my blocks here. I'm hoping you can see with this light. So you can do any kind of design that you like. So those blocks can be rearranged all kinds of ways. So let's see what's in the comment section. I'm seeing some stuff on here about disappearing 9 patches. And the quilting marine, I hope you got your question answered. That's what they're talking about with the DPNs. And Sharon is saying that that block is gorgeous. Thank you so much, Sharon. And it looks like we're done. If you got any questions about this, I can stay for another few minutes, but if not, let me know. HC is asking, I guess HC is asking me about, see, that's going to be great. And then I think I mentioned that there was puckering, and HC says, won't there be puckering? The quilting marine go, no pucker. Darlene says, why were you using an open toe? When I was actually paper piecing the block, that's the only time that I used the open toe. When I went back to sewing the actual block units together, I went back to my 1/4 inch foot. And at that point, I just ignored the 1/4 inch lines, although they are almost on point, because what I did was use my 1/4 inch foot, because sometimes I would have the paper on top, and sometimes I would have one of my fabric pieces that didn't have any paper on top. So I wanted to just use my 1/4 inch foot when I pieced the actual block together. When I pieced the arcs, that's when I use my open toe foot. Okay, the quilting marine says, I just got a 1/4 inch foot from Amazon. Don't tell my wife. She's sewing curves to curves. I'm just thinking that there will be some puckering. I only have this one little pucker up in here, but that is so little. I can even take that out if I wanted to, but I know that when I press this, it's going to be flat. And then when I get through long arming the death out of it, it's not going to show a pucker at all. So I'm not even going to take that out. So there is a little tiny pucker, but it's not the puckering that you would expect. And if I had stopped and moved raised my foot up with my knee lift, that wouldn't have happened. And I see Gail was also assisting those in the chat box with why I was using open toe. It allows me to see the lines on the paper when I'm doing the arcs only. That's the only time I'm using the open toe. The quilting marine go, unthreading is real. And Darlene says, the seam ripper is my friend. You know, I'm pretty good with, I barely ever use my seam ripper, so I do have to sometimes find it to use it, because if I mess something up, I'll end up using it some other way. So I tend not to unsew a whole lot. Um, Sharon Martin says she's got a new brass seam ripper. It's great. You know, I just pulled the first one out. I do have a brass seam ripper. I hardly ever use it, but I do have one. I just right now got it on a string, but it's there. I just pull the first thing that I see. Long as it works, I'm okay with that. And the Quilting Marine says he's got a lot of seam rippers. Darlene says she owns about 10. That is too funny. And the Quilting Marine says, finally, something I'm better at than tea is seam ripping. You all are funny in the comment section. I just adore it. I'm trying to make sure that no one else has any questions before we sign off. And Dewana is saying curves are too hard for me. I'm a beginner. You know, maybe a basic drunkard's path block. A drunkard's path block would be like a circle here, and then you have the big background, or it would be up here and then you have a background. Just depends on how the block is shaped. Maybe that's something that you might want to test curve piecing out on, because you only have to do 2 seams, and then you can always square the blocks up and make them match back up. But this, for a beginner, may not be something that an absolute beginner will do, but it's something that a confident beginner can do if you've got some good instructions. Dewana says hers makes me feel like this, and she's got a frowny face. And Carrie saying not yet. I asked her if she was working on the grandbaby's quilts, and she says not yet. My sewing machine isn't working correctly. Carrie, you need to call me. Darlene says, just think knitted blue socks to match the beauty. That would be nice. I don't knit. I wish I could, but I don't. It doesn't work out for me. I've tried it a few times. HC says, I think I'm going to just have to admire these type of quilts. The Quilting Marine says, this is a lot of work, but I know finishing it is so rewarding. Again, the quilt top that I showed you had some New York beauties where you can use them as accent designs, so you don't have to make the entire quilt a New York beauty quilt. So you can get to play with some blocks and then make it so that nothing has to match up, and you'll be great. I think, I don't know if I've ever shared this with you all, but I actually have made the Dear Jane quilt. And I started making that Dear Jane quilt when I considered myself to be a confident beginner, per se. And as I continue working on that quilt, I don't know if you all even know what the Dear Jane quilt is. If not, go look it up. But it has 169, I think they're 4-inch finished squares, but it's a gazillion pieces. I think I have about 5,600 pieces in my quilt top when I finish. My point is, it's a book, and the book only gave you a picture of the block, and you had to figure out how to piece this block together. So it's a very good learning tool, and I used that. And once I got through making some of those blocks, I was very confident that I could make any quilt block that I want to make. I can do anything at that point once I got through Dear Jane. And yes, Dewana is saying, wish we could talk back to you. Typing is slow. Yes, I am very much delayed in when I get things from my chat box. So I'm sorry about that. I don't know how to fix that. Wanda saying that she has a Janome 6500 and can't figure out how to insert the knee lift. It won't go into the slot. The book doesn't help. I find when I first try to insert mine into the machine, it seems like it goes, and then I have to like give it a good little push. So try giving it one last little push, Wanda, to see if it goes in. Don't forget to thumbs up this video, everybody. Thank you, Quilting Marine. Brenda says, that looks awesome. I love watching you because you are so down to earth, so easy to learn from. I'm so glad I found your channel. Thank you, Brenda, for watching. I appreciate all of my subscribers. So I do understand your time is very important, just like my time. So I appreciate you all as well. I love my two nephews. Can you all do a Google Hangout? I don't know what a Google Hangout is. I thought that this is Google Hangouts because I'm broadcasting live. Maybe I'm confused. Maybe there's some other way that you can talk back to me on another part of Google Hangout that I don't know about. I have to do some research. I've never done a Hangout on Google. Very pretty tea. Thank you, Evelyn. So I don't know how to do. I don't know what she's asking because what I'm using now is Google Hangouts to go live. So I don't know. There must be another side to Google Hangouts. Evelyn saying very pretty. So Lauren, okay. Willow Hills Design, hi T, just joining. We're just finishing up. So I appreciate you coming. You can watch all the demo though in the replay when it goes live. Hi Francine. You're welcome. She's saying thank you for the demonstration. I might have to have a little wine for this challenge. Beautiful quilt block. Oh, Gail says she loves it. And Lauren saying beautiful quilt blocks. So that's it. It looks like I don't see any more questions. I still have quite a few comments. If I didn't answer your questions, please post them in the comment section of this video or any other video. And Susan Glenn is saying she loves the block and wants to tackle New York Beauty. Have a good night. Well, I think that is it, everybody. My home phone is now ringing. So I will see you all next week. And the topic is, somebody was asking about quilt designs. And I don't know how much of that I can actually do in a 1-hour presentation, but we can talk about it and then you can share how you design your quilts. But I'll see everybody next week. Bye-bye.